Welcome to VMblog's Work From Home series. With the current pandemic, more people are working remotely than ever before. And with this new series, we plan to dive into this topic to learn more and provide answers from various industry experts. Case in point, today, we have an end-user computing expert, Jason Smith, who is Liquidware's VP of Products and Solutions. Jason, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having us on. Glad to be here.
I'd like to start things off by asking, how has the pandemic changed the way companies are dealing with their workers? And are you hearing from Liquidware customers that they've got, caught by surprise, or were they already putting things into place, maybe for things like business continuity reasons?
It's a good question. We saw a mix. We continue to see a mix of people that were either, prepared for this, or some that were partly prepared, and then we're hearing from some organizations that really weren't prepared at all. So it truly is a mix across the board. Of course, being in the virtual desktop industry, many of our customers were prepared with a solution that where users could log in from anywhere. Now, if that was the use case that they were using it for, work for home, that was the case sometimes it was not. So let's move to the next part, those that were partly prepared. Those that did have virtual desktop infrastructure, which, by the way, I believe is one of the best ways and most seamless ways to enable a work from home strategy. They were able to rapidly burst scale, and in those cases, we were able to help them out to take users that may have not been in the virtual desktop environment and to rapidly add increased numbers of users to that environment so they could enable more users to work from home.
For the companies that are continuing to push forward and have already migrated over to the work from home model, before we go into too much detail on the technology side of things and how that's working, maybe you can tell us about how it affects the people, connectivity, and the infrastructure.
Yeah, so working from home, there's a variety of ways that we saw customers looking to do this rapidly, and some of them would simply enable, a VPN, a connection to the office, virtual private network, to where they could have access to their files. Others would rely on a combination of maybe Office 365 or Google Office or something similar.
Right.
But those that were relying on virtual desktop infrastructure, it became necessary to really start to manage endpoints that had never been managed before in certain cases. So a lot of times that's a repurposed desktop. It could be a laptop or something you had around the house to pay bills on or something like that. And all of a sudden you wanted to put a Citrix client on it. And the Citrix environment, while upstream, may be very solid, very robust, built out in the cloud or on-prem correctly and sized appropriately to have a good user experience. But now a lot of organizations added this whole other dynamic. The first mile, we used to say that the last mile, and you could consider it that way if it was, but the first mile from the user forward, what was that experience like? And is there a way that you could help troubleshoot and diagnose that endpoint? Because you've got people that have a variety of different internet connections. Those of us that are fortunate enough to live in an area that have a robust bandwidth, whether it be from a cable provider or a fiber provider, could it be even better then, right? But there's still a lot of people out there that may have best case scenario, a solid DSL line, and some of those are now taxed with as many as 20 or 30 different devices for a larger family to be online at any time. So allocating the bandwidth, knowing that first mile of performance is something that was a challenge for a lot of organizations because, as I said, if they had their Citrix, Amazon, or VMware environments rock solid, then they had to think about that first mile, and was that going to be the weak link?
And then can you talk a little bit about, what Liquidware, your solutions, what are you guys specifically doing to enable, clients to work from home?
Sure. Well, I'll pick right up with that first mile. So we know that first mile, and we can intelligently know the user experience of the first mile, not just the VDI infrastructure on-prem or in the cloud. We monitor that. We've been in that business a long time, but we can also monitor that first mile. And by doing that, one of our 3 solutions, known as Stratosphere UX, user experience, knows the user experience. So a little agent gets loaded onto the endpoint. In this case, it could be that repurposed machine that you paid bills on at home, and now you're working from home, and now there's a VDI type client running there, whether it be Citrix or VMware or Amazon, or even a remote desktop connection app if you're not using full VDI, to where you're just remoting in. Knowing that first mile, the user experience, how much RAM is on there, we take a look at that. How much storage is being used, and how much bandwidth do you have to accommodate such a connection? Those are just 3 of many metrics that we take into account to give you a user experience metric. And then if you see that as you can run reports that would give you literally a green for good, yellow coding, or a red coding. If you see any of those in the yellow or red area, then you can drill down deeper and you can see exactly what's going on. So for instance, if you saw that their bandwidth was bad, you could actually take a look at that. And a lot of people on Wi-Fi these days, maybe they were logging on out by the pool, and if they just simply moved back closer to their house or inside their house near their router, they would have a better connection than things we saw. So we can diagnose that first mile connectivity in addition to knowing your composite user experience metric across the entire VDI infrastructure, and giving you a user experience metric for that, and then also for the first mile. So it's really an end-to-end user experience solution we provide with Stratosphere. But that's not the only way. You asked me how we're helping in that work from home instance, and our entire suite. A couple years ago, we went with this really tagline that we provide the industry's only adaptive workspace management. So we really prepare organizations to be able to burst scale into a virtual desktop infrastructure, above and beyond what they had today. And our solutions run on physical desktops as well. So let me just recap what those are. We already talked about Stratosphere UX, user experience, knowing that user experience. But also we have Profile Unity, which Profile Unity is a full user environment management solution. And as such, it can run even on physical desktops, so it can manage the user environment there, and that can naturally follow the user. Once you burst scale, or now you're rapidly adding users to something like a VDI solution, virtual desktop infrastructure, and that user environment will follow them along the way. Now, there's a companion product that goes along with Profile Unity known as FlexApp, and it can take the applications. The applications can also follow the user from a well-managed physical desktop to a virtual desktop environment. And maybe you're burst scaling from a Citrix environment to adding a lot of additional seats from another vendor. That could be Amazon Workspaces, or maybe you're going the other way, Amazon Workspaces to Citrix, doesn't matter, or to VMware. And we can do that too, because everything follows the user. Adaptive workspace management. So as soon as the user logs on to their new desktop, in the case of COVID-19, that meant for a lot of our users that they needed to burst scale. A lot of people were at home and they went home on short notice, maybe on a Thursday or on a Friday. And on Monday, they were sitting at home twiddling their thumbs because they didn't have an official desktop or workspace. And if you burst scaled and gave more users, you added users into that environment, you could literally ask them to install the Citrix client, just as an example. If you burst scaled into Citrix, onto their PC at home or desktop at home. And then if you were using our suite of solutions, you would know the user experience for that user to a degree. You'd still need it on the endpoint to get that first mile. The user environment would follow that user. They would immediately be productive, and their apps would be there for them to immediately productive. So you don't have any downtime when you use an adaptive workspace management. And we long have used that previously for migrations, migrations from XP to 7, and then from 7 to 10, and now 7 to multi-session 10, and so on and so forth, because there's many versions of 10. And it made for a seamless change over, and that's why we used adaptive workspace management. It's an ideal solution to be able to do that for a work from home solution too. So you have the most seamless desktop available to keep users productive.
Now, Jason, what are the biggest questions that your customers have been asking as they've been shifting to work from home?
So very interesting. Other than questions on how we can help, and we have helped many organizations, and I could touch upon some of those if you'd like. They have also started to wonder, how can I know if my users are productive and they want them to work from home? We've got some brand new reports built into Stratosphere that not only tell you the user experience, but we give you an idea how productive the end user is based on the application usage that you're using on an individual machine. You can aggregate this across department, and you can see in a report how productive is your human resources department now that you sent them home. And we'll give you a user productivity rating, a percentage range, and somewhere in the neighborhood of 60% or better productive on their desktop, we would call a productive employee, just as a rule of thumb, since we've gotten into these new reports and looking at this. And that because they might be on lunch break, they might have taken a break, they might be on the phone call, and of course their PC is then not being used. But the user productivity reports have been very helpful. And that's not a net nanny or spying on the user, but it does look at line of business applications, for example, and can tell you how productive the end user is, or at least give you some sort of idea. The other challenge that we saw was, how do I rapidly make applications available to the end user at home that we've never had to be able to do that? FlexApp has proven to be a great way to do that with many organizations. It works with Citrix App Publishing. It also works with Amazon AppStream 2.0. So you can use those technologies to deliver or publish applications, simply given a shortcut to an application or within a browser for users to be able to use those applications. And it is a rapid way to deploy that because they can be attached from a VHD. And that can even be on object-based storage on Amazon or Google or Microsoft cloud storage. And without modifying the base image of your virtual desktop environment, your Citrix environment, or whatever, however you're publishing it out, without modifying that, FlexApp's able to add another application or append to your existing infrastructure to take care of that use case as well. So you can rapidly deploy enterprise line of business applications within minutes with FlexApp. Makes them easy to manage as well.
Now, a lot of companies that have kind of been forced into the work from home, are there any security challenges that maybe these companies should be thinking about but aren't with the whole process of migrating people from the office to working from home?
That's a consideration many organizations have gone through, and I've actually got a list. I won't bring the slide up to have to share it here, but I mentioned earlier, many organizations went to a VPN approach, and while that's good, you may not know what the end user is doing on their NPC, and then there's a security hole there. Many organizations relied on Office 365 or Google Apps alone, or just emailing files back and forth and remoting in, and those have their security issues as well. The most secure desktop that most of the industry analysts are saying to provide a work from home user is a virtual desktop. And that could be a virtual desktop for VDI, or it could be server-based computing, as we've known for a long time from RDS and Citrix, and VMware has their own flavor. And now there's Windows Multi-Session 10 from WVD at Microsoft. Those are the most secure way, because you as the administrator fully control the user's workspace, and you deliver the apps in there that you want. You put the security parameters in that environment that you wish, and you can lock down those desktops too, so they can only do certain things. You can even restrict or disable cut and paste, for example. You can hide control panels. You can easily disable things like users' ability to browse the network, and you can further secure those desktops just as if they were in the office themselves. There's always going to be security holes, like could you take your smartphone and take a picture of a screen, and then you've just been able to leak that. But those are the same security holes that you have at most organizations anyway, whether they're in a cube inside of a tall office building or they're at home. So it is proven from most of the industry analysts that virtual desktop infrastructure is the best way to keep your users productive and to keep them, those desktops and work experiences secure, because you've done everything that you can within your power to enable whether it's compliance, industry compliance, or legal compliance for who has access to what files and what time of day. And VDI and server-based computing is the way to do that, the best way to do that.
And Jason, what would you say are the key technologies that people need to be using in order to achieve this work paradigm shift? Well,
we discussed virtual desktops, of course, is the best way to do that for having a desktop. Voice over IP has been greatly underrated. If you think about it, many organizations were able to adapt rapidly, and I know this is a little outside the purview of that, but I've got, for example, my phone as if I'm sitting in the Liquidware office, right? This is the voice over IP phone, and all I had to do was hook it up to the internet here, and I pick it up and people know no difference. So the technologies like voice over IP, Microsoft Teams has been great. We're using Zoom today, and many organizations use that. But those that didn't have voice over IP so they could rapidly adapt, they might have been at a slight disadvantage. There's many organizations still on hardwired phones, and maybe voice over IP where phones were tied to the desk because they were only enabled for certain IP address range and things like that. So those are some of the other technologies many organizations can use to make it as seamless as possible for users to stay productive as if they had never left the office.
And Jason, do you have any tips on what people should be doing to better prepare, if this work from home mandate continues, or God forbid, if it happens again, somewhere down the line that this whole process kicks back up again, next year or the year after?
It's a very interesting question because we talked about a rapid shift to work from home. And if we look at Liquidware's history, where we saw really the heart of a lot of where we came into being as a very mature company, and it was the Windows 7 to 10 shift. Many organizations had to go through that. And I liken this to that. We helped organizations seamlessly move, like log off of a Windows 7 machine and immediately log on a Windows 10 machine. That's because they had their users under management with something like our adaptive workspace management. So it would be as seamless as possible. So if you keep your users under management, and not only through your siloed Citrix tools that help manage the user, or your siloed VMware tools that help manage the user, and Profile Unity from us competes a little bit with that, and FlexApp competes with a lot of the other things. But if you're managing this at a level that is a little at a higher range, through an adaptive workspace management suite that can rapidly adapt the user in your organization to new work rules and new desktops at a moment's notice, switching from Citrix to Amazon to VMware or back and forth, or the user through that, you're going to be at a significant advantage. And that doesn't mean that you have to keep those licenses from Citrix or VMware or the others. You can burst scale and talk to them about different ways to burst scale your licensing to accommodate work from home when needed. And then you can retract that and keep your users under management on physical desktops as well with Liquidware. So when Liquidware is at play, we enable you to burst scale and have a user log on to anything else, work from home for a period of time with COVID, and there's disasters out there like hurricanes and things like that may come into a city that it really has people that need to flee to a safer space and need to keep them productive. So I think this is a lesson many organizations can learn from, and many are still learning from it. We're still getting many calls. Here we are in June of 2020, and this started in March. Many organizations had taken a piecemeal approach to get by, whether it was VPN and other things, and they are indeed adopting things like virtual desktops to help make everything far more seamless now and in the future.
And Jason, if you had a crystal ball and you could look into the future, I mean, what happens next? All these people that are now getting used to working from home in their flip-flops and their t-shirts and don't have to commute, how do you get these people to come back to the office?
Well, I do think that this was a paradigm shift, not only just for COVID and disasters like this, and we can call this a disaster if we wish, because it did have disastrous consequences on many parts of business. But it's really a paradigm shift in the way that organizations will do business. And I do believe that many organizations will start to question at the next time their lease comes up, do they really need the full office space that they needed? Or did I see something like my stratosphere reports? Users were productive, just as productive, perhaps more productive, working from home. So, you know, I live in the Atlanta area, and in the Atlanta area, it's estimated by some accounts to be just $4,000, just a little over $4,000 per user to keep an office space for a user in the city of Atlanta. If you were to save that for one user and to decrease that office space for even one user, you could save around $400,000 a year. That's an incredible savings. And if you could even turn some of that into flex space, I was on the campus of Citrix headquarters a few years ago, and they had these ideal flex spaces where users could come in a couple days a week and have an atmosphere where they could have ad hoc meetings. It looked like a restaurant without table service is what it looked like almost. Booths around the room. And I met with a few product managers in a few of those booths, and this is the way that they just did business. And I foresee, you know, Citrix was the cutting edge of that then. I foresee more and more organizations starting to adapt their office space to accommodate that, and perhaps cutting back on some of their office space. I do believe many people will go back into the office, and that's where they're going to be the most productive. A work from home strategy is not going to be right for everybody for the rest of the business duration here. And people might get tired of working from home or need that option. Maybe they don't have a quiet office. So those types of, I see that has changed. If you also look at other cost savings, right? And we talk about a commute to work, and we talk about what if we do a conservative count of a commute to work of a 1 hour round trip. That's approximately what it would take me to get to the Liquidware office in Alpharetta. 1 hour a day, 30 minutes there, 30 minutes back, and that's ideal traffic. You know, how many hours a week is that? That's 5 hours a week. Well, I won't use Liquidware as an example, but I spoke to a private aviation manufacturer this past week, and they told me they value their employees' time at $81 an hour. So if I looked at that and I multiplied 81 times 5, I get $405 of productivity potentially out of that employee per week, because they're probably going to start logging in about the time that they would have gone to the office. They may stay a little later in their home office. They'll need to learn some own rules to keep their own home in order. Of course, not working all the time, but you may indeed have more productivity. And again, this is for one worker. You may get another 405 hours, $405 worth of productivity out of them per week. When you aggregate that, again, let's just say to 100 employees, what is that? $405,000 of productivity that you could get out of that. So I think that organizations will re-examine that. There's a lot of smart thinkers at the C level of many organizations that are having these discussions right now, but I do believe that this will be the start of a lot of change in the way that the world does business.
So Jason, you've obviously given us a lot to think about. Where can folks who are watching this go to learn more about Liquidware, about your technology, and I guess more to the point, do you have any resources available that specifically answers or targets this whole, you know, work from home discussion?
Right. Well, you know, first and foremost, there's a lot of individuals out there suffering. There's a lot of organizations suffering, and I really want to get across the message that we're here to help. We're here to help, even have a consultation with you, and to help you decide maybe what's right for you, or you might decide to go another path. So we're here at any time for that. The solutions I spoke about today, you can go to our website and you can download the trial versions of those and you can get started. There's a 15-day trial included with all three of those solutions today, so you can kick the tires of them and see if they're right for you. Liquidware.com is the best place for that resource, and then there's a banner ad that comes up across our site, and if that banner ad's not there, scroll down just a little bit on liquidware.com and you'll see a trending topic. It's been at the trending topic area for a while now, work from home. Click on that and you'll see resources that specifically address the business needs. There's a solution brief in there and talks about all the ways that your users and yourself, your IT organization of your organization, can be more productive with a work from home strategy.
Well, great. We'll try to help out readers a little bit as well, and maybe we'll put some of those links to those resources in the show notes in the YouTube description, that just to make it a little bit easier.
Great speaking with you too. Take care and be safe.
Thanks, Jason.
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more from our cloud technology partners, please hit the like button and subscribe. And if you want to get notified next time we post a video, please hit the subscribe and the bell notification. Very important.